That Saturday morning, I sat quietly in the corner of a small, familiar coffee shop in Portland, my hand gently wrapped around a hot cup of Americano. Outside, the first snow of the season drifted down onto the car rooftops. But I didn't feel cold. Maybe because something inside me had been frozen for a very long time. "You really should come with us this time, Amelia," my sister said, her pale pink lipstick curling into a sly smile. "The Maldives in December is pure heaven. You know, morning spas, afternoon cocktails, candlelit dinners. Or are you still saving up to buy laundry detergent in bulk?" The whole table burst into laughter. Even my dad chuckled, the one person who should have understood me best. And Mom? She said nothing, just tilted her head to admire her freshly done nails under the lights. I smiled, but it caught in my throat. No one knew that just last week, I'd transferred $2,100 to make the November mortgage payment on the very house they were all living in, the house they still proudly called the family property. I'd done that every single month for 5 years. No breaks, no complaints, no conditions. Over $126,000 in total, and in return, I was labeled the closed-off one, the office girl who doesn't know how to live. I used to think I was the good daughter. Now, I'm not so sure. "You're always working," Sophie went on, her voice light as air but sharp enough to slice pride. "Keep this up and you'll still be single at 40. Before I could reply, Mom jumped in, her tone soft as if comforting, but the words rang hollow. "I just want you to be happy, Amelia. Look at Sophie. She knows how to live, how to enjoy life. You, on the other hand, it's just work and bills all the time." No one asked who was paying those bills. The brunch at Sophie's house felt like a never-ending performance. A white linen tablecloth, glasses of Prosecco filled and emptied nonstop, laughter bouncing off cold marble walls. I quietly picked at my salad, chewing slowly, listening to their plans for a Christmas getaway in Aspen as if cost was a make-believe number. "Oh, by the way," Sophie said casually, "Dad mentioned the awning might need repairs, hopefully nothing serious. Speaking of which, Amelia, do you still have that old contractor's number?" I nodded, swallowing the bitterness. House repairs, plumbers, late utility bills. I handled all of it, quietly, every month. No one knew. And the cruelest part? They never wanted to. Driving my parents home, Mom leaned her head against the car window, a little tipsy after 2 glasses of champagne. "Sophie is so lucky to live such a full life," she murmured. "She really knows how to make people admire her." I bit down on my lip, not out of jealousy, out of exhaustion. Exhaustion from quiet sacrifices being twisted into reasons for ridicule. As I pulled into the driveway, Dad turned and said, "No need to come in, sweetheart. You've done enough for today." I almost laughed. If he only knew who'd been keeping that house from foreclosure 5 years ago, would he still say that? I waited until they were inside, then slowly drove back to my small apartment. No one knew I'd been approved for a home loan 3 years earlier, but when Mom called, sobbing over a heating bill they couldn't afford, I canceled everything. I chose duty over my own dreams. I chose silence instead of boundaries. I chose family, and I was the only one who did. My name is Amelia Blake. I'm 36, a senior audit associate at a finance firm in downtown Portland. I live alone. No kids, no pets, no property. Just a color-coded budget spreadsheet, a list of recurring transfers, and a swelling sense of betrayal pressing against my chest. That night, staring at the latest mortgage delinquency alert on my laptop, I knew it had to end. 3 days later, I returned to the East Haven house to take Mom to her routine checkup. Dad said he had a banking appointment, though he was the one who reminded me to be on time. "Your mom's a little worried about her cholesterol numbers." When I rang the bell, no one answered. The door was unlocked. I stepped in and called out, "Mom?" Laughter echoed from the kitchen. I followed the sound and froze in place at the doorway. Mom was perched on the kitchen counter, holding a green smoothie, chatting happily with a young woman in a cream blouse embroidered with a spa logo. Sophie was snapping pictures nonstop, like she was shooting a promo campaign. I blinked. "What's going on?" Sophie turned, beaming like I'd interrupted a fashion shoot. "Oh, you're early. This is Maya. She's a skincare specialist from Serenity Day Spa. Mom just got a 5-session facial treatment package, courtesy of yours truly." I glanced at the corner of the table. A receipt peeked out from a caramel-colored leather purse. Total, $2,145. Paid in full. I turned away, trying to keep my breath steady. On the drive to the clinic, Mom chatted non-stop about the new LED skin therapy and how it could reverse aging. She gushed about how thoughtful Sophie was. I just drove in silence. But when we got back to the house, something pulled me toward the garage. Dad always kept important documents in the wooden drawer next to the tool shelf. I had once helped him find a drill there. The drawer creaked as I opened it. No drill, but there was a thick stack of documents bound with a rubber band. I slipped it off, my hands shaking when I saw the red stamps across the envelopes. Final notice. Notice of foreclosure. Past due. Date. Sent. 3 months before I made my first support transfer. I flipped through the pages, each one cutting through my memory like a blade. My family had been in financial trouble long before, but they never asked me to help through a rough patch. They hid everything and crafted a story about a small temporary hiccup, casting me in the role of the silent savior. I remembered the night they called me 5 years ago, back when I lived in my old apartment in Belmont. Mom cried on the phone, said Dad's construction contracts were falling through, income slashed. Sophie texted right after, "If I were you, I'd help. No one else can." I made the first transfer the next morning. 2 months later, Sophie posted photos from Lake Tahoe, red bikini, margarita in hand. Work hard, play harder. 3 months after that, Dad swapped his old Ford for a brand new Subaru. I remembered clearly. I was the one who helped him find the low-interest auto loan. Every time I increased my support, a new luxury appeared: a hot tub installed in the backyard, an Italian leather sofa, a German espresso machine, and finally a high-end air purifier for Mom's respiratory health. I didn't question it. I wanted to believe they needed me. Now everything was clear. I hadn't just been taken advantage of. I had been strategically redirected. Every so-called sacrifice I made had been written into their script. That night, I printed every document, marked dates with red ink, then laid them out across my apartment floor in chronological order. A betrayal map, lines of ink, connecting my bank account to their indulgent spending and hollow praise. While reviewing last February's bank statement, one detail stopped me cold. The exact day I wired $1,200 for an emergency heating repair, Sophie had paid off a full resort stay at Jackson Hole. Same day, same hour. I closed my eyes and heard her voice in my head. "You should learn to enjoy life instead of living like a robot." The printer beside me kept humming, feeding out sheet after sheet like a quiet indictment. Numbers don't lie, but I had been blinded by blood ties. My phone buzzed, a text from Dad. "Amelia, can you send a little extra this Monday? Your mom wants to upgrade the electric stove. The old one keeps shorting out." I set the phone down. An hour later, I stood in the kitchen, staring at the screen on my banking app. Automatic transfer, candled. My dad's birthday party was held at an upscale Italian restaurant with a garden patio in the city's most expensive district. Golden lights glowed across a koi pond in the courtyard, soft jazz mingling with the delicate clink of glassware. I arrived right on time in a simple black dress, hair in a neat bun, no accessories except the old watch Mom gave me when I graduated college. Sophie showed up nearly 40 minutes late, stepping out of a gleaming rental limo like she was shooting a commercial. Fiery red dress, metallic heels, lips perfectly lined. On her arm was the latest designer bag I'd seen featured in last month's magazine. "Coming straight from the office?" she asked, eyes scanning my outfit. "I thought you'd wear something edgier tonight." The words floated lightly, but just sharp enough to turn a few heads. "No one told you this was a cocktail party?" added one of her friends, probably a stylist, laughing. "Cute, though. Kind of office chic." I pressed my lips together. That entire evening, I sat wedged between shallow compliments for Sophie and veiled jabs at my existence. Mom proudly told relatives about Tanner's exciting new investment, my brother, who had cycled through 3 jobs in a year. She's helping him launch a blockchain startup. The kids these days move so fast. I nearly choked. She was me? Or someone else footing the bill for his office gear and a domain name that never even went live. Tanner sipped wine, bragging about a leadership workshop he'd attended in Seattle, then added, "Amelia should try a course like that. She's great with numbers, but kinda lacks the vibe, you know?" Chuckles followed. Someone whispered, "She's a bit closed off." Dad raised his glass, thanking the whole family. When he praised Sophie and Tanner with glowing words, I froze. Nothing for me, not even a glance. After dinner, I sat alone in the courtyard, light from the restaurant filtering through the leaves, casting blurry shadows across the table. My phone buzzed. Sophie had posted, "Family nights are the best nights, blessed power family." I tapped the screen. The photo showed everyone raising glasses, Sophie beaming in the center, Mom smiling wide, Tanner pointing playfully at the camera, Dad mid-toast, and me, half obscured behind a vase of flowers. I checked Tanner's profile. His latest post was a shiny new MacBook captioned, "Startup life, hustle 24/7, big things coming." That laptop, I had ordered it for him when he claimed his account was temporarily frozen. Mom's page was full of luxury outlet shopping pics. Caption, "Just a little something for myself because I deserve it." There was even a shot of her posing in front of the newly renovated kitchen, funded by my urgent transfer last month to fix a leaky pipe. Scrolling down, I read the comments from her friends. "Your house is stunning, totally Pinterest-worthy. You always have such great taste, so inspiring." I exhaled a short, hollow laugh and turned off the screen. No one knew that behind all those lights stood a shadow, silent, invisible, and judged as odd simply for not living lavishly. That evening, when I got back to my apartment, I received a message from Sophie. "You should buy a new dress. There's an upcoming event, lots of important guests. As sisters, we ought to keep it classy, right?" No thank you for the utility bills I covered last month. No sign they understood what I had done. They weren't just spending from my account. They wore my effort like a glittering coat, then mocked me for not knowing how to live. I stared at the screen. Sophie's message just sat there, cold as steel. I opened my laptop, pulled up folders of bank statements, transfer logs, screenshots of invoices. I added social media posts with timestamps, cross-referenced with my transfer records. Everything matched. Violet sat cross-legged on my living room floor, hair tied up, glasses slipping down her nose. She was flipping through the third folder, red pen in hand, marking pages like prepping for a federal case. "Every single transfer came from your account," she said, her voice dropping. "And it aligns too precisely with their transactions. This isn't accidental anymore." I didn't answer. On the screen, my Excel spreadsheet displayed every payment I'd made over the last 60 months. Right next to each line was a note. Sophie, Paris, airfare, Tanner, MacBook, Dad, Subaru, Mom, collagen therapy spa. Violet sipped her tea and set the cup down without breaking eye contact with the documents. "Do you want to go all the way with this, Amelia?" I nodded, slow but firm. "I'm not letting this repeat for another fall." That night, we worked late. I dug through old email folders, recovered deleted texts from iCloud, pulled up chats with Mom about sky-high utility bills this month, and gas leak in the kitchen. Dangerous for Dad. Violet photographed everything, coded conversations, and created a separate file for each family member. 3 days later, Violet texted me, "We need to meet." urgent. We met at a coffee shop near City Hall. She brought another thick folder, face stern like she carried an indictment. I checked property records, she said, pulling out a chair. There are 3-second mortgages recorded against your parents' house. Borrower name, Tanner Blake. I tightened my grip on my coffee cup. Are you sure? Positive. First one was 4.5 years ago. The next two are about 8 months apart. Total amount? Close to $180,000. My heart sank deep into my chest. What did he do with that money? Violet pulled out her iPad, tapped a few times, then showed me a screen. An Airbnb listing. The Guest Nest, cozy detached studio with garden view. Hosted by Tanner. Photo of the living room. Bathroom, small kitchen. Each shot showed the same guest house I had mopped and changed curtains in when Mom said she couldn't find a cleaner. Your parents don't know, Violet continued. Tanner registered it under an LLC with his name. The money goes straight to his personal account. I said nothing, not from surprise, because suddenly, every puzzle piece locked into place. Each time Tanner claimed to be bootstrapping a startup, he used the family home as collateral. Whenever Mom cried about needing repairs after a storm, I footed the bill while he pocketed the capital. What do you want to do now? Violet asked, watching my face. I want the full truth, every detail, nothing left out. For the next 2 weeks, Violet and I built a detailed dossier, like we were prepping for a hearing. We gathered my personal bank transfer records, Sophie's shopping receipts from her linked Amex via PayPal, social media screenshots with matching timestamps, county property files, borrower names, disbursement dates, notarized locations, Airbnb booking info, guest reviews, stay history. Every time I wavered, Violet reminded me, they played you like a game of chess. Now it's your turn to make the strongest move. Friday night, I got a text from Mom. Amelia, can you come to dinner this weekend? I'm making your favorite braised short ribs. There's something I want to talk about. I typed slowly. Sounds great. Invite Sophie and Tanner too. I have something to share as well. I hit send, then turned on the printer. It whirred to life, spitting out page after page, stacking thicker by the hour. I didn't know what they expected me to announce over dinner, but one thing was certain. They wouldn't forget the day the game ended. Sunday morning, as I brewed coffee, my phone rang. Caller ID, Dad. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Hey, sweetheart, he said in a breezy tone like calling about the weather. Listen, I just checked the mail and there's a notice about the property tax. They've raised the rate this year. I didn't think it'd be this high. Silence. I mean, he went on, we probably just need an extra $3,800. That little amount will help us avoid late penalties. I sipped my coffee, letting the bitterness settle. What if everyone covers that little amount themselves? I said evenly. A pause. Then he gave a strained laugh. Amelia, are you okay? You sound different. Just thinking more, I replied, and hung up before he could say anything else. Less than an hour later, Tanner texted. Can I call you? Real quick. Urgent. I didn't reply. 5 minutes later, my phone rang. Amelia. Tanner's voice burst out, fake enthusiasm coating every syllable. Great news! You're gonna love this. I'm working on a super promising NFT project with a digital artist out in LA. The whole industry's shifting. This is the golden window. Right, I said, flipping to the next page of my statement as he raved about exclusive exchanges, native tokens, and a new era of collectibles. What do you need? I asked bluntly. Ah, straight to the point. I need about $25,000 to start, but you won't be just giving it away. I'll list you as a strategic stakeholder, profit split 60-40. There's even a pitch meeting with investors on Saturday. You coming? I want them to see you, help build trust. I leaned back in my chair. Do they know you've been using Mom and Dad's house as collateral to pull money? Tanner stopped talking. What? I'll ask again. Do your potential investors know you mortgaged a property you don't even own? What the hell are you talking about? I have the documents. All 3 loans. Your name. This address. Signed and sealed. Tanner went quiet. Then he sighed and shifted into a soft, guilt-tripping tone. I just wanted to help the family. Mom's under a lot of pressure. You're doing fine. What's the point of saving all the time anyway? Not everyone wants to eat salad year-round and wear clearance jackets. I let out a dry laugh. Funny. I'm the one who's helped keep this house above water for the past 5 years. I didn't have a choice. He raised his voice. Mom and Dad have depended on you for years. Everyone knows that. You're the stable one. The rest of us, we're trying our best. Don't say, the rest of us. No one in that us ever thought to ask if I was okay. Are you coming Saturday? He dropped his voice, still trying to salvage his investment dream. I'll be there, I said, but not to sign anything. And what for? I hung up. Immediately, a text popped up. Mom, heard from Tanner about the new project. You should help him, Amelia. It's the only way he'll ever stand on his own. I stared at that message for a long time, then dropped it into a folder labeled Evidence, Financial Coercion. The next morning, Violet arrived with more files. One included details from a real estate brokerage. Tanner had attempted to apply for 2 additional loans, but was denied both times for lack of property ownership. Still, he'd submitted draft contracts, falsely claiming inheritance rights pending. You ready? Violet asked. I nodded. My eyes locked on the bold print at the top of the latest file. Attempted fraudulent representation of real estate ownership. Under investigation. Saturday evening, 7 o'clock, I said, right at the house. They love hosting parties. Need backup? I've got a plan. I handed Violet a printout. Mom's guest list that she'd proudly posted on Facebook. A whole lineup of important people invited to celebrate Amelia's big life milestone. They'd be there to eat, drink, snap photos, and witness something completely unexpected. Not an NFT pitch, just cold hard truth laid bare in black and white. The house at 428 Garden Hill glowed like it was set for a wedding. Mom had rented a white canopy for the backyard, strung up soft yellow lights, and filled mason jars with hydrangeas. Sophie darted around checking the lighting for the celebration photo series she planned to post after dinner. Tanner was in the kitchen, with 2 men in suits, chatting animatedly about NFTs and angel investment rounds. I arrived on time, carrying my document case and laptop, wearing the white blazer Violet had dubbed the closure jacket. You're here, Mom squealed, pulling me into a hug, scented with expensive perfume. We're all so excited for your big news, she whispered. Everyone's guessing you're getting married, or at least quitting to travel the world. I smiled without correcting her. Sophie waved me over to the backyard setup. A long, linen-covered table, chairs neatly arranged, crystal glasses aligned. On the table were menus boldly titled, Celebrating Amelia's New Chapter. What's your guess? I asked gently. Sophie shrugged. Promotion, or maybe you secretly invested in something and made a ton of money? If you're secretly a millionaire and didn't tell me, I'll be mad. I laughed. For once, it wasn't fake. As the sun dipped, guests began taking their seats. Mom had me at the head of the table like some miniature queen at a feast I paid for. Jay, one of the investors Tanner invited, sat across from me, still holding his wine. Amelia, it's great to finally meet you. Tanner says you're the most influential person in his financial circle. That's so? I looked at Tanner. Influential in what way? Tanner chuckled nervously. Let's eat first, then we'll make the big announcement. Mom raised her glass. Amelia, you've worked hard for so long. Tonight's the moment you share with everyone. That you've learned to live, to enjoy, just like Sophie and Tanner. Thanks, Mom, I nodded. I do have something to share. But before I speak, I'd like to open something small. I pulled out my laptop, powered it on, and connected it to the mini projector I'd stashed under the chair. The screen lit up with the title. The full financial picture. 5 years of silent sacrifice. A few murmurs rippled through the crowd. Jay set down his glass. Sophie squinted. Tanner sat upright. "I'm not getting married," I began. "I'm not traveling either. I just want to show everyone what I've been doing for the last 5 years." I clicked. The first slide showed bank transfers. $2,100 each month to the mortgage account. Total $126,000. This is what I paid toward this house. Over 60 months. Never missed a payment. No one noticed. Because you were all too busy mocking me. The screen shifted to a breakdown of each person's personal spending. This was Mom's facial spa appointment. The same month the mortgage was due, in October. This is Sophie's plane ticket to Paris, booked the same week I had to request a paycheck advance to avoid penalty fees. And here's the laptop Tanner ordered, the very day he asked for emergency support for a so-called clean tech project that never even existed. Tanner jumped up. "This is going too far." "Not yet." I clicked again. 3 additional mortgage loans under Tanner's name, using this very house as collateral, even though he doesn't own a single part of it. Total, $180,000. Sophie stood up and screamed, "What are you doing? Humiliating the whole family in front of Mom's friends?" I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and turned the screen toward them. "And now," I said, "this month's auto payment, I just canceled it." Mom froze, her face drained of color. Dad clenched his water glass so hard it cracked. "Starting today," I said, pronouncing every word clearly, "you're going to live on your own terms. No more side accounts, no more silent sacrifices." No one said a word. One of the investors stood up and said softly, "I think I'll be going." "You're insane," Tanner hissed through his teeth. "You just ruined everything." I slid the documents back into my bag and stood. "I didn't ruin it. I just stopped saving it." I turned and walked out of the yard, the lights behind me flickering as Mom sobbed and Sophie shouted after me, "Amelia, you're going to regret this!" I didn't stop. The car door shut with finality. Night fell over the quiet street, and the only sound left was the distant rustle of pine trees. I smiled faintly, not from joy, just relief. No one could speak over me anymore. 3 days after the dinner, a post from one of the investors' Instagram accounts went viral faster than I expected. They had recorded not just the slideshow but the entire chaotic family meltdown as the truth unraveled. Within 24 hours, the video racked up over 800,000 views on TikTok. Hashtags like "The Amelia Dinner" and "Fake Luxury Family" flooded the comments under verified accounts. Sophie deleted her social media right after a beauty brand posted a statement. "We've decided to end our collaboration with Sophie Blake to uphold our commitment to transparency and ethics in media." Other brands followed. A fashion label that had sponsored her New York Fashion Week trip went public, saying they had been misled about the financial background of our content partner. Sophie tried to strike back with a long blog post calling me a cold-hearted sister and someone who doesn't understand selflessness, but the comments were flooded with links to the very bank statements I'd projected during dinner. Tanner didn't fare any better. The 2 men in suits that night, Jay and Mike, pulled out within the week. They sent polite "thank you" emails and forwarded all financial documents to their attorneys. The NFT site Tanner had planned to launch was scrapped. Hosting expired after his PayPal account got frozen due to payment disputes. Julia, Tanner's girlfriend, left a single message in the family group chat. "Amelia, thank you for speaking up. I can't believe I trusted someone like that. I'm moving out of the apartment. Wishing you peace." I didn't reply, just saved the message and filed it under records. Part of me felt light, the rest just numb. Mom sent an email titled, "We're still family, right?" It was only a few lines. "You don't have to forgive, but have mercy on your father. His heart can't take this stress. Everyone's coming down on us. Are you trying to destroy my life completely?" I blocked the email, then Dad's number, then Sophie's. Finally, Tanners. They started messaging from alt accounts, using fake names, even asking old friends of mine to pass along indirect messages. A few tried to play mediator. They were wrong, but they're still family, Amelia. I put everything on Do Not Disturb. While they scrambled to control public opinion, I booked a flight to a lakeside town in Vermont. Violet handled the logistics, a wooden cabin tucked by the pine woods, no cell signal, no internet. I left my laptop behind, packed only a notebook, a few novels, and my hiking boots. My first morning at the cabin, I sat on the porch with a mug of hot cocoa, watching the mist swirl over the lake. No notifications, no one asking for money, no fake concern. In my coat pocket, I kept a small note Violet had slipped in before sending me off at the airport. Freedom is the only thing you never have to ask permission for. By the end of the week, I started sketching again, something I'd long abandoned under the weight of work and duty. I drew pine trees, slate rooftops, old wooden chairs beneath oak canopies. On day 8, I took the only call I chose to answer. Violet shared the update. The bank is moving forward with foreclosure. Tanner defaulted on the secondary loans. They're selling fast, below market value. Mrs. Blake has been removed from the local charity board. A formal complaint was filed, misuse of donated funds for personal expenses. I asked, "How's the public responding?" "People are sharing your story everywhere. Some are calling you a symbol of courage. You've been invited to speak at a panel on personal finance and family boundaries. Want to accept?" I stayed silent. A cool breeze rolled through the pines behind me. "I'll think about it," I replied. After hanging up, I pulled out a pen and wrote on the blank page. I once paid the price to hold onto a house that wasn't mine. Now, I hold on to myself. With no collateral needed. In February, I left the Vermont cabin with forest dust on my hiking boots, a mailbox full of unopened letters, and an email titled "Invitation from NPR, Special Interview on Family Finance." The sender was Marianne Rowe, a veteran editor of the Behind Closed Doors segment. They were preparing a content series on subtle forms of financial abuse in close relationships, within families, marriages, even friendships. "Your story has made millions reflect on their own lives," Marianne wrote. "If you agree, we'd love to film the interview next Tuesday at the main studio in Manhattan." It took me a few minutes to respond, not because I hesitated, just to make sure I could speak without my voice shaking. The recording took place in a warm studio, with soft lighting and velvet soundproofed walls. Marianne sat across from me, her gaze sincere, her voice gentle but incisive. "What do you think kept you silent for so long?" she asked. I paused for a few beats. Because I thought it was love. Turns out it was obligation in disguise. We spoke about patients bound by blood, about being turned into a walking ATM, about the warped affection used to control people. At the end, Marianne held my hand. "Your honesty doesn't just clarify the issue. It opens a door for those who still can't find their voice." 3 days later, the interview went live on NPR's official platforms. My inbox exploded. No more requests for cash or manipulative messages. Now it was gratitude. A woman in Ohio shared that she'd been quietly paying her sister's rent for 12 years without speaking up. A man in Seattle said his mother had been using a credit card under his name since college, and he had never confronted her. They sent photos, handwritten letters, even screenshots of journal entries, just to say, "Amelia, because of you, I've started saying no." A publishing house reached out. "If you want to tell your story your way, we'll fund it completely. The world needs to hear it from someone who's lived it." I said yes, not because I needed to retell it, but because I wanted to decode the fractures inside people who place family ties on a pedestal without realizing they're being burned alive. The book, titled Silence is Alone 2, was released 6 months later and sold out its first print run within 10 days. At every signing, someone cried. Not for me, for themselves. For finally recognizing their own reflection. A nonprofit in Boston invited me to serve as an advisor for their Finance and Boundaries program, an initiative helping people recover from family-driven financial control. They teach budgeting skills, asset ownership, safe conversations with relatives, and even offer legal counsel for intra-family financial disputes. I joined, not as an expert, but as someone who made it through. That alone was enough to help others speak up. Sophie sent a letter through an old friend. She wrote, "You can hate me, but because of you, I'm in therapy. I know there's no going back, but if there's any path to start again, I hope I'll have a chance." Didn't respond. Tanner was investigated for falsifying documents in his secondary loan applications. He took a warehouse job on the outskirts of Phoenix. The last message he sent to my public inbox read, "Not asking for money. Just want you to know I'm still alive." I didn't delete it, but I didn't save it either. My parents sold the house at a nearly $200,000 loss compared to market value. They moved into a small apartment in the suburbs of Albany, avoiding all social gatherings. Mom deleted her Facebook. Dad answered calls with clipped words, like a man with nothing left to preserve. As for me, I moved into a small attic apartment in Portland with windows that look out onto blazing red maple trees in the fall. I draw, I write, I work 3 days a week. I tend to the daisies growing from my grandmother's old clay pot. I no longer monitor other people's bank accounts. I only mind my own balance. No one calls me the frugal one anymore. No more comments like, "Why won't you help your family?" Now, they call me by name. Amelia, the woman who unplugged herself from the machine of unconditional sacrifice. Amelia's story proves that financial abuse in families doesn't always scream. It often hides behind false affection. Once a quiet provider, she stood her ground, exposed the manipulation, and reclaimed her power. She didn't just free herself financially, she won back her dignity, her voice, and her sense of worth. What do you think about Amelia's decision? Would you do the same if you were in her shoes? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt and thought-provoking family stories.